Hey everybody, Brendan here. Welcome back to another tournament game analysis video. We're going to be covering a new tournament, the Howard Rideout Memorial. I am at my highest ranking ever. I finally surpassed my highest rating. I am now at 1964, which is awesome. So I'm playing against Rune. This game was actually played before the tournament, the previous tournament, but in terms of how the rating was given out, this is after, so this is why I'm covering it now. Let's start with the game. I'm playing with White against Rune. He is 2162, very strong opponent. Okay, e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, and now we get the Rosslimo. Oh boy, I'm a little worried. I did a little bit of preparation, just a little bit though, of this type of Rosslimo. Not for the specific player. We don't really know for these ones. For this tournament, who our opponent's going to be. We only find out like a minute before, so there's no time to prep. My opponent plays g6, bishop takes c6, d takes c6, d3, and then f6 was played. And yeah, here I should probably go for e5. I end up not thinking about this in the game, but this is a pretty promising way to play. And I just play against the double isolated pawns here. And most importantly, I just prevent them for going for like an e5, f5, like almost King's Indian style break, which we'll actually see somewhat in the game. I played h3 instead. They played e5, and now I don't have the chance. a4. And generally, the reason why we play a4 is to play a5, and then bishop e3, target the c5 and b6 pawns. Bishop e6. I played b3 here, which was kind of unnecessary. I should have just played bishop e3. But I played b3. Knight h6. a5. Knight f7. Bishop to e3. This is all fine. About equal, maybe slightly better for white, but nothing really. f5. And here I go queen e2, allowing f4. I probably shouldn't have allowed it. Or I should have done something else. Like queen c1 makes a little bit more sense. Where now f4 is a bit less attractive because I can play bishop d2, bishop c3, and then queen b2. And start really pounding down on this e5 pawn. Because it's a huge weakness. But instead, yeah, I go queen e2. And now f4 is a bit more promising. My opponent didn't play it. They played queen f6. So I should probably have at some point played bishop d2, again, because waiting for f4 and then bishop c3. I played knight c3 instead. We are not going for f4 at all. Rook b8. And the idea here was I was just trying to make productive moves to see if they play f4. And then I think I was even going to maybe even consider a plan like g3 and maybe castle long, maybe. But the idea is if they get their kingside attack, which as an old King's Indian player is something that I wanted to watch out for. But now I feel like I have a better grip of the positions and understand them more. That's not really the thing I should be worried about. So I should take on f5 here. I'm not really worried of e4 because I can just play bishop d2, funnily enough. And I can take on e6. This all luckily works out for me. This is a pretty funny, crazy variation. But okay, I played knight a4 instead. And the idea is, again, to go after this pawn. My opponent plays b6. And I was considering taking, and maybe even sacrificing on b6. I was trying to make this work. It just doesn't, though, unfortunately. They have to play a pretty important move, f4 here. Which isn't that hard to find, though. And that's why I didn't end up playing it. I was looking at moves like this, rook a8 check, king d7. And I was also trying to make, again, bishop takes c5 work. But the biggest problem is the queen is defending the rook on h8. So, unfortunately, that does not work. But I spent a little bit of time here just to make sure. It doesn't hurt, right? But I play knight c3 instead. And now it's a bit of a problem. I, again, should just take on e5. E4, I can take on e6, actually. Just completely let it hang. Go king d2. And let them take both rooks. Because we get a position like this. King g7 and queen g4, and white is winning. There's just a huge attack going on, and the queen is completely offside, and none of their pieces are coordinated well. So that's kind of why I'm still going to play this, because now that I know that these ideas of taking on f5 are good. This looked bad at first, but the more we look at it, the more the better it looks. And that's why I'm going to keep playing it, is because the biggest thing I was worried about in these lines is actually something to not worry about. So knight c3, bishop d6, bishop c1 here. I was very proud of this move. Just a regrouping to b2 and starting to target e5. Castles, bishop b2, rook a8. I end up taking on a8, and here I castle, which is incorrect. I again should take on f5, and then actually castle. And this looks a little scary, but the truth is they don't really have good activity. I can play like rook e1, and this pawn is crispy critters, as they say. There's some problems with it. Like, it's hard to defend. But now I know these things. And that's one thing I learned from this game. I was actually very happy with my play of this game, despite what the result's going to be. Because I feel like I was playing on good form, and, well, there was a lot of stuff that I learned that was very useful for me. So f4, rook a1. Rook b8 was played. They didn't end up trading, which I think is a mistake. I think trading actually makes a lot of sense here. And then they can actually get to the a file before I can, like queen d1, queen a7. And they can, just create some havoc here, like h6, maybe go for some g5. And if I go for like queen a1, they can actually even go for the endgame. And I don't think they actually have problems on this endgame, because everything's defended well enough. As long as they just don't play something like king g7, oopsie, 9 takes f4. But that's just one variation there. So rook a1, rook b8, knight b1, g5, knight h2. Just to prevent their normal King's Indian plans. Queen g6, knight d2, so bringing in more pieces. Maybe I'll play knight c4, maybe I'll play knight f3 or knight f1, just bringing more pieces to the king side just in case. b5 was played. I played rook a6, just to make them a little bit more passive, and I was happy to do that. Queen d1, h5, and I played f3 here. Queen f6, queen a1, just to cover and threaten the e5 pawn just a little bit. Queen d8. Here I played c3, which was a huge mistake. Instead, if I just play like king f1 or king f2, the position actually goes on, and it's not awful for us. It's probably maybe slightly better for black, but it's not the end of the world. c3 is the end of the world. King g7. And we should play c4. Like, this is, I don't know why the engine's giving it. I think the idea is that we could just like bring our king to like e2 and just defend really, really passively. But that does not look fun. I go for d4 instead, trying to rip open the diagonal since their king's on g7. King f6. And this is actually a mistake. They should take. They should be happy to take. And then play king f6, which is pretty funny. Wait. Okay. It was originally giving okay results. Wait, what? Okay, yeah, sorry. C takes, and then king f6. But if they play king f6 immediately, my apologies. Yeah, we have d5. Okay. C takes, e takes, and then bishop takes, and then we can play c4, for example. And now we have a target on e5. We can play moves like knight e4 check as well. And we get a little bit more activity. We're probably worse here, though, too. Okay, rook a7. Rook c7. I go rook a8. And then they go queen d7. We see knight hf1. I'm preparing some moves like king f2 if they ever try sacrificing. I think sacrificing does not work out here. So I was trying to provoke them into it. Because things can get open just enough and everything's defended for the moment. And this just forces trades, so we should be okay. But okay, I was hoping for that. But they played knight h6. Here I should play d takes e5. And then c4. Just trying to get this dark square bishop off the board as well. This would be very, very helpful for us. was actually hard for me to evaluate something like bishop d4 check, though. Turns out this is totally fine. We can even trade here and then just go like rook b8. And, well, the b5 pawn's going to fall. d4 is like a little scary, but also not really scary at all. Okay, so I played king f2 instead, because I was trying to watch out for these types of sacrifices. Also g4. Knight f7 was played. I played king g1 back, seeing if they would repeat. Of course they didn't. They took on d4. And here they took on d4 again. And I played e5 check. I thought e5, like, at this point it feels like I'm just lost. And now bishop e5 is very strong. Because after knight takes, even if I try to cause some havoc, doesn't really matter. They're going to play moves like queen c5 check. They have like rook d7 coming. And any of my activity is actually just fake. Like, it doesn't really do anything. I can't even take this pawn because king g6, rook h8, and queen c5, king h2, and rook a7, and then they get their other piece in. And it's not really like easy to say where my pieces should go. Like, let's just say queen b1. Now they have queen c3 and rook a1 coming, for example. And I can't really like play queen b2 because then I'm just asking knight d3 to be played. And there's no checks because the rook g8 is covered by the bishop. So, okay, e5 check was like last chance. Just like hopefully maybe knight takes and then I like give a check and then play bishop takes d4. I realized I was probably losing at this point. King g7, knight c5. I was happy to play, and this is what I was kind of hoping for. But again, it doesn't really lead to anything. They play rook d7. I think if they take, okay, maybe there's a little something here. Looks like maybe we can try to infiltrate. Problem is, actually after queen e5, there's no infiltration squares. We have to play a move like queen b6. We would love to play queen d8, but we can't. But alright, rook d7. I took, they took, and I avoided the queen trade. If I trade queens, then I'm just down a clean pawn for nothing. So queen c1, c5, rook c8, trying to pick up the pawn. Rook d5 to defend it, of course. I go queen c2. Just like looking in this direction, and maybe going like knight d2 to e4. I have to watch out. Knight d2, queen e3 check is a problem. Queen d4 check instead, so now knight d2 is off the cards as well. Anyways, king h2. And now b4 was played, which was interesting. I was surprised by this one because it makes it harder to create a pass pawn with c4. But their argument with b4 here is actually really sound. They're going to go queen c3 and probably just pick up the pawn and be 2 pawns up. Not immediately, of course, because c5 would potentially fall if they're not careful. Of course, the rook on d5 does defend c5 for the moment, so everything does work out. I go rook c6, which is another idea with queen c2. I'm just looking to get in if I can. Knight e5. Now I can't get in. Rook c7 check. King f6, which is unfortunately what I missed. I was looking at moves like this, but, well, mate. And then, obviously, like, if they go here, queen f5 check comes in, and actually I'm probably winning there too. But, of course, they just go king f6, and now I don't have any entry. I tried h4 here. Make it messy. They go g4. If they take, then I don't know. I was just hoping for a little bit, and I would have been at least slightly happier here because maybe I can go like queen h7 and cause some problems. Again, there's knight takes f3, which is something I was worried about because then if I ever take, they have queen f2 check picking up the knight. It's actually just like forced mate at this point actually. Or if I go king h1, queen g1, king h3, it's knight g5. So g4, queen e2, g3 check. My idea here was to prevent anything there. But again, now there's another problem, which is that my king is extremely weak. King h3, queen g1, threatening queen h1. And here I go queen a6 check, just hoping for something. Of course, they do have king f5, so they're fine, unfortunately. But they did miss this check, and they were like really concerned after the game. And then I go queen c8 check, hoping for something again, but unfortunately knight d7, and everything's just barely holding together. Queen h1's check is unavoidable. I take on g3, king takes g3, queen e1 check, king h3, and after king f4, I just resign because there's still no threats for me. Like, I can't give any checks, unfortunately, in this position, and queen g3 is pretty much an unstoppable mate, which is very unfortunate. If only I could teleport my rook to f7 here, that'd be nice, but that's not possible. So that's how the game went. I think I resigned with like 2 seconds on my clock too. People thought I flagged. I didn't. I swear I didn't. Okay, I did not flag. I resigned because I'm a good boy. Okay, I don't let the clock run out in a classical game. That's mean. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's how the game went, which was unfortunate. But I feel like I learned a lot from this one. So I don't really like. I'm not upset about this loss. I deserve to lose. I played worse than them, but I feel like I played at a good potential. Like there was a lot of stuff that I was happy with. Bishop c1 to b2, for example, and there's something fundamental that I learned, which was my issues with pawn play, specifically with taking on f5 and worrying about f4. These are things that are very, very good to know that they're weaknesses in my game, because that means it's something I work on, right? There's been a few losses for me recently where it's like I was just moving too quick, and like sure, that's also something useful to know, but you know, when we play a game, we want to learn something a little bit more concrete than just like, oh, I was playing too fast, I gotta play slower. This game I didn't play too fast or too slow. I felt like I actually played at a good speed, even though I was close to flagging. And there were other games where it's like, oh yeah, I saw the move and I was gonna play it, but I decided to opt for something else at the very last moment for no reason, or like maybe it was over pushing again for no reason. Which was a game like two games ago. This one was like, no, I deserve to lose this, but I learned a lot of valuable lessons, and that is something I'm very happy about. And generally, why I love playing high-rated opponents, because you see the quality difference in the play, and there's a lot to learn from it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I had an absolute blast losing this game, funnily enough. This is my first time in a while losing a game that I feel like I, not only deserved to lose, but it was like a pleasure to, and that's going to cover it. So I'll see you all in round number 2, or game number 2. Bye bye.